That's a game, by the way, from a viewer on YouTube, Winterget, and it's basically like a Celeste clone. I took a look at this for a long time, and my points were this game doesn't look that great. While that can be fine, but it also looks kinda slow. It looks slow, yeah, and kinda easy. And then, according to the reviews, we figured out that the speedrun of this game is about 21 minutes. And so if you're a normal person, judging by the reviews, you're most likely playing the game or finishing the game below 2 hours. That in combination with the looks might be the reason why the game is not that successful, since this is actually a very interesting comparison with Celeste. Celeste is a game that is vastly successful. The slow movement could be inspired by Castlevania. There were a few games that had slow physics to emphasize strength in the character. Yeah, that could be it. You can see the guy swinging in the video. And the last point that I didn't even think about. This game shows you a character. He's slinging himself through the world. And while he's doing that, he's never engaging in any combat. Now, what you can see here for a brief moment, he's actually fighting wolves all of a sudden, out of the blue. And that's an interesting point that Real Supercool's friend brought up, that like, what does this have to do with the game? All of a sudden you are on a plain field where wolves attack you from both sides. While all the way throughout the game before, it seems like there's not a single enemy attacking you. And so that is somewhat of a mix-up that seems to confuse. The game looks empty. Yeah, the game looks kinda bland in a way that there's not much going on. If we take this picture here and then we go and take a look at Celeste, there's a lot more stuff going on here. Now, obviously, much of it is visual, right? We have rain coming, or I think this is a wind actually. Then we have the cloud here. We can see the mountain to the right. You're on flag 19 at this point. Then there's a cloud here that you can actually jump on. And a very nice parallax effect as well. It looks like a low quality Celeste clone. It looks like there's not much going on in every image. And it looks like the movement is not even close to the movement of Celeste. So if you want to make such a game, then obviously you have to compete. And so like we gotta compare this with Celeste, and there's a bunch of great articles. So how about we read through this? But Cakez, what do you think from the perspective of the price? That's a good question. So the price here is 3 euros, while Celeste right now, it's on my playlist. I already have this. Okay, so the Celeste is 20 euros. I think in this case, now that might be a hot take, I think in this case the price actually doesn't really matter. I'm gonna tell you why. Because the market is so saturated that there is probably going to be another platformer that is cheaper than this game, but better. The price doesn't really matter in this case, because even though it's very cheap, there's not enough content and the game doesn't look appealing enough because of the oversaturation that you would not decide to play this game over a different game. You would pick a different game that is probably on discount as cheap as this game, and you would make a better decision than playing this game. Celeste is £5 for me at the moment. It compensates a little, doesn't it? It does compensate a little bit. However, the reason still stands. Like, there's no reason to pick this game up, even for this cheap. Because if we take a look at the 70% of Celeste, you're only investing 3 euros to get a much better game with many more mechanics. But it's fine to talk about the reasons why a game is not successful. We also have to understand, okay, well, why is Celeste a better pick? Now, obviously, we can go into the visuals like we always do. You know, that's the easiest thing to do. If we take a look at, let's say, this image right here, and then we compare that with any image here, what we can see here is, well, there's a plateau or platform that you can jump off of, and then you use the grappling hook to jump maybe here, and then use the, I don't know, wall climbing or whatever you have in the game. It looks like you're just gonna grappling hook up here. So basically what you have to do in this case, or in this entire picture, is jump down, grappling hook, and jump here. That's like 3 things that you do. However, in this picture on Celeste, if I remember correctly, you start out here in the middle, and then you have to jump here to the side, hold, or do a double jump so that you jump on this side. You also have these black blobs. If you touch them, you die, right? So only this little part, we are not even done with the level yet, is a lot more things going on than in this picture right here. From what you have to do as a player. And also, you have a jump, followed by grabbing on the wall, followed by wall jumping to the other wall and grabbing that wall. You can get exhausted from grabbing on the wall. There's a save point right here if you fall off. There's a lot of stuff going on in this little level. There's a lot of attention to detail. And let's not talk about, right, we're not talking about the visuals, which are obviously much better in this game. As a person who was thinking of making a grappling hook platformer, this should be useful to analyze. Yeah, you should analyze this because you're making a 2D platformer. You should figure out why Celeste is so good. Now, this is just what you can do in the game. Right? And there's many more mechanics. You also have these bubbles. However, if you have these mechanics, it is also very important that they are not annoying or janky, which brings us to the physics, how the physics is implemented. And I think this one is more interesting because I haven't read that yet. Retrospective. 5 years ago, the most heartfelt indie platformer changed video games forever. We are all climbing our own mountain. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Have you ever felt like there's another version of you that solely exists to drag you down? So that's talking about the other you in the game that's like evil, and then over time, it's a spoiler if you don't want, like, you know, plug your ears right now. But essentially the other you is gonna help you eventually after you defeat her. And then you climb the mountain. So basically the other you, he's gonna talk about that, is anxiety, depression, or self-doubt. Now, 5 years ago, indie game Celeste combined the difficulty of pixel-perfect platforming. I wonder what that means here. The platforming is that you need to play Nintendo's platform. Okay. With these heavy themes and created a game that all at once feels so specific and still relatable to nearly everyone and gave players hope. To this day, the impact of Celeste is felt in the industry thanks to how it set the bar for indie games tackling tough themes within masterfully designed systems. So I hope he goes into these systems and we can figure out why Celeste is so important. The climb. In the most basic terms, Celeste is a pixelated platforming game about climbing to the top of a mountain. In reality, this does not accurately describe the complexity of Celeste's mechanical thematic achievements, but let's take it piece by piece. Developed by Maddie Thorson and Noel Berry, Celeste took inspiration as a platformer from Thompson's previous game Towerfall, as well as Super Mario Bros. 3. The core mechanic of Celeste is precise platforming, climbing. So like, he's right, but he's also wrong because there's a lot of forgiveness mechanics in the game that hopefully he goes into. One of the forgiveness mechanics that I always talk about is, for example, coyote time. If you run off this cliff, just for a brief second, a couple of frames, you still have the possibility to jump, even though you're already with your feet in the air. That's a forgiveness mechanic. So it's actually not precise platforming. But okay, climbing the mountain takes players through several chapters broken into multiple stages, each slowly adding more systems that challenge the player on their climb. In the style of SNES platformers, Celeste can be excruciatingly difficult in how it requires near perfect execution on the part of the player to progress. That's actually wrong. There's a lot of forgiveness mechanics in the game. So there's another article by Maddie Thompson, the developer, where he talks about the different forgiveness mechanics of Celeste. And I think that's the reason why Celeste is as successful as it is. Or one of the reasons. Not the only reason. Obviously it is also relatable. But a gamer, when they first see the game, they don't really care about it being relatable. They want to have a good game to play. Maybe you guys are different than me, but when I see a game, I think about, well, is it fun to play? Is it difficult? And is it well made? You know, does the game play really well? I don't know about you, but the fact that I was talking to my other self and, you know, I didn't really care about that at all. Maybe I'm different though, you know. But yeah, so one of the big things is coyote time. You can still jump for a short time after leaving a ledge. I think that's one of the reasons. And then we have another one, jump buffering. where if you press and hold the jump button a short time before landing, you will jump on the exact frame that you land. So that is pixel perfect, but it doesn't require pixel perfect input. Halved gravity jump peak. This one is hard to see. If you hold the jump button, the top of your jump has half gravity applied. It's subtle, but it gives you more time to adjust your landing and also looks / feels pleasant. So that is something that basically, if you don't hold your jump button, you're gonna fall to the ground faster. And if you hold your jump button, you're gonna jump much further. Okay, what else do we have? Oh yeah, this one. Jump corner correction. If you bonk your head on a corner, the game tries to wiggle you on the side, to the side around it. That's another one that allows you to do almost pixel perfect execution while not requiring pixel perfect input. And there's many others, but we can go through them. Then we have dash corner correction. That's essentially the same thing as the jump corner correction, but with dashes. Okay, what else do we have? Semi-solid popping. Oh wow, what is that? We also pop you up onto semi-solid platforms if you dash sideways through them. Wow, that's a huge correction. Just knowing these mechanics will help you play the game much easier. Celeste gets very hard post main story. Yeah, and that's the thing. We're going through all of these forgiveness mechanics. But don't mistake this as an easy game, because Celeste is getting really difficult later on in the game. The B-sides, what I've seen so far, are incredibly difficult, and I didn't even try them myself. I have had enough issues with the game. Lift momentum storage. Jumping off a fast-moving platform adds that platform's momentum to your jump speed. Madeline stores this momentum and will still get a boosted jump for a few frames after the platform has stopped moving. Oh, I see. So basically, even though the platform stopped moving, you can still do the jump. So it doesn't require you to do a pixel perfect jump here too. White wall jump window. Oh yeah. So that's one I implemented myself. We made a Celeste clone on YouTube. And you basically check whether you are a couple of pixels close to a wall. If you are, then you can do a wall jump. That doesn't require you to do a pixel perfect jump. You can actually wall jump 2 pixels from a wall, yeah. That sounds tiny, but it is 300 by 180 resolution game, yeah. What else do we have? Even wider, super wall jump window. Okay. What is that? If you're doing a super wall jump, i.e. a wall jump while dashing upward, this is a more precise and demanding maneuver, so we'll let you do it from even further away. I think it's 5 pixels, which is more than half a tile. Yeah, 1 tile is, by the way, 8 pixels in the game. Stamina refunds. This final one is complicated, but very important for Celeste. First, some setup. If you're grabbing a wall and you jump straight upward, that consumes a lot of stamina. Yeah, I tried that a lot. I felt a lot. But if you jump away from the wall, that's a normal wall jump, and that uses no stamina and pushes you away strongly. These are 2 different actions with very similar inputs. Okay. Here's the trick. If you perform the straight upward jump, but then press away from the wall shortly after, the game refunds the stamina spent by the upward jump and blatantly applies the horizontal wall jump force. Or to describe it plainly, there's a grace window where it will convert one of the jump type to the other after the fact. Damn. You might have noticed a pattern. All are concerned around widening timing, positioning windows, so that everything is fudged a tiny bit in the player's favor. I think this is a big reason why Celeste can feel kind, even though it's very difficult. It wants you to succeed. And in my opinion, paired with the awesome visuals of the game, this is the reason why Celeste is so successful and why this game is not. Now obviously I couldn't test all of these mechanics in this game. We would have to buy and play it. Oh, we can download the demo, why not? Let's see how long the demo version is. Ooh, okay. So what I see already is that he's sliding a little bit. The jump is... Can I jump further? Yeah, you can jump further, so they have this jumping time. And let's see what's happening here. There's no dashing in the game. And so now we have to do the grappling hook. Oh god. Oh, that's annoying. So essentially... okay. Huh? It's definitely not intuitive. Oh god. Dude, are you kidding me? Huh? Ah, okay. Damn, you lose all momentum if you do that. Uploading this to live stream fails. Okay, and you can go up and down, but it's really slow. You see how slow that is? That's maximum speed. Can I use it as like a weapon? Okay, okay. I mean, there's not much going on here. What are you doing? Jump! Go up! Oh, I see. Maybe the game wasn't play-tested. The grappling seems very hard to use. What the fuck was this jump? Where did that come from? Okay. It seems like it gives you a boost on the edge. But only on the edge. Watch. See that? How I only get a boost when I'm actually on the edge. When I do this, then I get a boost. Okay. Oh god. Okay. So basically what's happening is if I get to the edge of these platforms and I jump, he does a far jump to the left or to the right. If I don't do that and jump normally, he jumps high. So that makes it really difficult to time the jump properly. Like it's really clunky in a way. So what do I do here? Eh? Skill issue? Shh, brother. No, I don't think you can wall climb here. Oh, you can. These look like spikes. Okay, one more time, bro. The thing is, the issue with this grappling hook mechanic is that I have to hold the mouse button and the grappling hook happens on release. It's really annoying to use because what you want to do is click and then have it instant. But if I click, it just holds to give me the indicator. I think the one change that makes... You can change it in the settings. Right X on button release. Okay, that should not... That should never happen. You don't need the indicator. I'm telling you why. The reason why you don't need the indicator is because the grappling hook itself is already the indicator. So that doesn't even need to be in the game at all. This setting should not be in the game. There should not be a setting at all. Oh my god. And if you don't do this perfect jump here on the edge... Okay, one more time. You have to go to the edge and jump far. Yeah, it requires like... Oh god, okay. One more time. Okay, I'll give it one more try. It is really tedious. Like, I have to say. Like, I have to be brutally honest. But this is really tedious. Think of the baby. I'm not gonna rage, guys. It's fine. I'm not gonna rage. But it is really tedious. Alright, so now we press the space bar here. I can't jump this wall.
2 hours later.
Huh? Dude, are you stupid? Okay, I mean, the physics of it doesn't... It feels awkward too. And you lose all your momentum. Like, I would assume... So, like, what's happening here with these hooks, right? I do this, I jump here. And I lose all my momentum. The moment I get here. I'll show you. Watch. I have momentum. And it's gone. Like, it's slowly gone. I didn't press anything. What it should do is keep the momentum. so that I just have to press a little bit to... So yeah, guys, I think, unfortunately, the game just doesn't feel good. Obviously, I'm trying to find something right now, okay? But I don't think the game would be successful at all. Like, it needs to feel better. Eh? What just happened? How did I get here? That's an odd transition. Eh? Okay. Looks cool. The door. What the fuck is this? Okay, wait. Yeah, it does help. What the fuck? Eh? Eh? This thing was clearly moving up. Slow when you die this much. No, it has nothing to do with this. Like, for example, here, my momentum is gone. I can't do anything in the air. You guys remember the game that we talked about, the video we watched, making game mechanics that don't suck? This is one of them. Once you're in the air, if you can't do anything anymore, this is really frustrating for the player, because they can do something, but all they're doing is watching their character die. It feels slow and janky, unfortunately. A game about swinging should feel dynamic and not kill the momentum anytime you use the mechanic ammo. Yeah, I think one of the biggest things of this game that needs to be improved immediately is make the grappling hook function on mouse click immediately, and then don't kill the momentum. If that's the main thing of the game, it has to feel as perfect as it can be. Give forgiveness mechanics, maybe make it faster. Like, it has to be snappy. It's not. It's really slow and janky. Okay, anyways. Let's see if there's anything more this guy has to say. We left with the pixel perfect movement, the precise platforming, and the near pixel perfect execution of the part of the player to progress. On the part of the player to progress. That's wrong, but maybe there are some other points here. Like any game with a limited but complex gameplay loop, Celeste is not afraid of the player failing. You will fail again and again and again. At the risk of falling into the biggest cliche in games journalism, it is like Dark Souls. Seriously. I did die a lot, yes. I think on my first playthrough of the game I had like 500 deaths. Right? Did I have 500 deaths or more? Or was it 2000? No, I think I had 2000 deaths. How many deaths did I have? A lot. I had a lot of deaths. But in my defense, I was playing on a controller and I was tired. So I would have had less deaths. Celeste expects the player to pay attention to what they're doing through a series of levels that teach and then test them on their ability to perform the game's platforming well enough to progress. Souls games use difficulty and death as a teacher. But in much... No, actually, because Souls games are not difficult to be difficult and not death as a teacher. Souls games use programmable AI that behaves randomly, yet consistently randomly, depending on what the player is doing. A lot of bosses will use certain attacks when you're close to them and some other attacks when you're far away. And the distribution of these attacks changes whatever the player is doing. So Souls games make the player learn by being random yet predictable, and therefore you can learn the pattern of every boss that you encounter in Dark Souls. And that makes the game fun, because every time you die, you learn something new. And that's not actually, it's not just difficult, while yes, the game's difficult, but the fun part about the game is learning. And death is not the teacher, but the mechanics of the boss is the teacher. Like, the boss is teaching you the more you fight against the boss. You will see patterns in the boss when you're close, when you're far away, what he's doing, and then you learn the boss without trying, failing. But yeah, you're trying a lot. And the cool thing is that you can learn as you're trying a lot. And Celeste is much the same in that it teaches you not by chance, but by forgiveness. So I don't think they are related at all. While yes, both of them are difficult, Celeste is forgiving, very forgiving. And Dark Souls just has a very great enemy AI that teaches you. The forgiveness mechanic did their job right. If he thinks the near perfect execution was needed, he didn't realize. Yeah, so that's a good point, Quack. He didn't realize the forgiveness mechanics because he thought pixel perfect was required, and he managed to do pixel perfect precision because of the forgiveness mechanic. Yeah, that's true. Without trying, failing, and learning from your mistakes, see, this is where the learning part comes in. You will not reach the top of the mountain. The game does offer extensive accessibility options to make the game easier. He should go into this, okay. Yet, rather than failing into the trap of forwarding a get-good mentality in players, Celeste uses its narrative to tell a more caring and transformative narrative about how our actions can affect us if we don't take care of ourselves. The narrative that pushes the player through its series of challenging stages follows protagonist Madeline, who has spontaneously decided to reach the summit of Celeste Mountain in hopes that it will help her regain her self-esteem. So I think most gamers care about the game feeling good in this case, and that's what Celeste is able to do. Now, this is a strong point, a long-lasting or lasting community. Along the way, Madeline encounters other people on the mountain, some trying to climb it as well. Eventually, supernatural occurrences begin, including the appearance of Madeline, a dark version of Madeline that personifies her anxiety and depression. Through the climb, Madeline encounters the dark self who constantly tells Madeline she's not capable of this foolish venture. Madeline frames herself as the pragmatic part of Madeline. What could easily become a feel-good story of learning to push past your doubts in order to achieve challenges turn into a more complex investigation of how we all deal with the parts of ourselves we would rather not have. Instead of ignoring Madeline, the only way Madeline can succeed and reach the top of Celeste Mountain is to realize that these anxieties and fears are natural. By understanding them and learning to effectively cope, you can live peacefully. You don't have to fight yourself. Celeste has gained massive fanbase thanks to its realistic depiction of dealing with mental health issues and questioning your own identity with a heartfelt but realistic eye. For each person who loves Celeste, for its pitch perfect platforming, there's another who loves it for the games help them through their own climb. It even helped Maddie Thompson come to terms with issues she was facing during development and only realized after releasing the game. Interesting. So maybe there's two parts, you know. The more casual gamers really like the story and can feel at home with this. Am I tripping, or does that sound like some marketing shit or corp talk? It's difficult to say. Celeste has become a beloved game in the trans community due to Madeline's status as a canonical trans protagonist in a video game. Okay, that has nothing to do with that. Like, what is this guy talking about now? What are we reading at this point? Okay, we're closing this. Like, what is this guy talking about? All right, hopefully this Game Maker's Toolkit guy can tell us why Celeste is so successful. And hopefully this time it's not because she's trans. But maybe he goes into this. Let's see. Ooh, nice
If you're
touch.
making a platformer, you've got to get your main character feeling good.
Yep.
Because sloppy
It's the number
physics, unresponsive controls,
Oh, yeah.
floaty jumps, and
yeah.
imprecise movement
That suck.
are completely toxic in platformer design. So it's
True.
vitally important you get this stuff right. And if you wanted a character to learn from, you could do a lot worse than looking at Madeline, a 20-something wannabe mountain climber and protagonist of 2018's award-winning platformer, Celeste. Her controls are tight, precise, and responsive. You can put her exactly where you want and ping from platform to platform with fluidity and accuracy.
Yep.
And the game not only works at a super casual level, but it even holds up when you delve deep into Celeste's toughest challenges.
Yeah, you can do some crazy stuff. Like what you did here, you know, all of these platforming mechanics. That one's a difficult level. There's even worse
how
ones.
exactly is this achieved? Well, to figure it out, I went on a bit of a journey. I pulled apart the game's code, I went frame by frame on Madeline's animation, I chatted to Celeste speedrunners, and I spoke to a couple people who know the game better than anyone else.
I'm Matt Thorson, a director co-creator of Celeste.
Yeah, I'm Noel Berry, and programmer and co-creator on Celeste.
And so, after all that, here's what I learned about the killer controls of Celeste.
They give you forgiveness.
So let's
that's
go
what we
back
got
to
so
the
far.
very beginning and look at Madeline's most basic move, her run. A character's run can be split into 3 parts: acceleration, top speed, and deceleration.
Yep.
As in, once you start moving the stick, how long does it take the hero to get up to top speed? And how long does it take to stop when you let go?
That's essentially the way they program this, is by having this approach function that not only approaches upwards to a speed, but if you are starting higher, it approaches downwards. That's how you can get past your movement speed and slowly approach down. And I guess I'll show an implementation of that really quickly. I have that in my game too. It's basically something like this. You approach a target using an increase. That would be the acceleration here. And then you take your current speed. And then it depends on what you want to do, right? If you are less than your target, then you obviously want to approach it up. You're accelerating. And then if you are higher, you obviously are faster than what you want to do. You decelerate. And that's basically the same thing here. You always want to hit the target, but you can go higher and lower. And that's essentially their acceleration loop. It's not really much code at all. Right? You just need to have 3 things. You need to have a maximum speed, you need to have an acceleration, and you just store the current speed. Very simple.
Getting these 2 curves right is especially important.
That's
Keep
difficult
them
to do,
short
yeah.
and the character will feel stiff and robotic, like in Mega Man 11. Make them long and the character will feel heavy
Floaty.
and lumbering to set off, like in Super Meat Boy, and slippy and uncontrollable to stop, like in Super Mario Bros. 3.
Oh, damn. Okay.
That game generally feels great to play, but Mario does feel like he's running on ice at times.
Yeah, that's true.
In Celeste, Madeline has ultra-short acceleration and deceleration curves. It
Interesting.
takes her about 6 frames to get to full speed, which happens roughly 4 times faster than Super Meat Boy. And she comes to a stop in just 3 frames, about 9 times faster than Mario in New Super Mario Bros. U. Those digits are just high enough to make Madeline feel human and to stop you from being able to do huge standing jumps, but short enough that she almost instantly does what you tell her to do. You're very rarely going to slip off the edge of a platform in this game.
Yeah,
Her top
that's
speed
true.
is relatively low too, and unlike Mario and Meat Boy, there's no run button to get even more speed. I think this is just fast enough to feel fluid, but slow enough that you feel in total control.
Yeah, because
at
you
all
have
times.
dash.
We can do a similar process with the jump. First, we calculate the character's jump height by looking at how high they can jump compared to their own body size. So in New Super Mario Bros. U, Mario can jump to a point that's 4 times
Damn,
his own height.
that's high.
While Meat Boy can jump massively high
Holy
to about
shit.
6 times his own height.
6 times.
And then we can look at each character's jump curve, noting the climb, hang time, and fall. This also gives us a total.
By the way, if the jump takes too long, it feels floaty too. You know, you have to be careful here with how fast you do the jump, how fast you go up and down.
Jump time. So Meat Boy has a tall and lengthy jump, making the character feel a bit floaty. Yarny from Unravel, on the other hand, has a
Now, I would assume that Celeste's curve is somewhat like this. It's a very steep curve. Now, that's what I would
really short
assume.
jump and not much hang time, making this woolly
Actually,
ragdoll
wrong. I think it's like it's a steep curve, but not as steep as I like. Maybe this.
feel surprisingly heavy and leaden. Madeline again sticks to the short end of the spectrum.
Okay.
She goes up and down
Interesting.
very fast, but with quite a lot of hang time so you can line up your landing. And she can jump to about 3 times her own height, giving her one of the shortest jumps around.
Interesting. Okay.
Just like her run. These numbers are enough to make her feel bouncy and animated, but as far from floaty as you can get.
Okay.
There's more that makes Madeline's basic movement feel good, of course. There's the fact that she can change direction very quickly with no skidding, and how she has massive amounts of air friction, which means if you stop moving the stick in midair, she'll almost instantly fall straight down.
That's essentially what I was talking about, the Winter Get game. You don't have any control or barely any control when you're in the air. And you're basically just left, okay, I'm dead now, I guess. Which kind of sucks.
Makes it easier to land precisely where you want to.
Hey,
and
Connery,
then there's
good
the
morning.
more fundamental design of the game's camera. Celeste is a zoomed-out game where, at times, the entire room is framed.
The camera doesn't move at all. I didn't even notice that. That's what I was saying about the previous game. Plus, you use the mouse in that one. Yeah, in Celeste, you don't use the mouse. And it looks like the camera... I didn't even notice that. Of course, the camera is stable so that you can see the entire game at all times. And it doesn't move. It does move here and there, I think. I'm pretty sure he goes
by a
into this.
static viewpoint. This means that the screen isn't flipping out all over the place.
Can you guys... I played this as a kid. You guys probably did too, right? Can you see what's going on in here?
Which makes it easier to be precise with your runs and jumps. If Madeline is the only thing moving, it's easier to put her where you want to.
Yeah,
the devs did have to compromise on detail for the characters and environments, but I think it was worth it. Now, Madeline's movement is entirely hard-coded and written in Visual Studio with the help of Microsoft.
We have seen that, yeah. And I've shown you the approach function right now. That's just a tiny bit of what's going on. But maybe he goes into this.
XNA framework. So the devs didn't use the built-in gravity or physics systems you sometimes find in game engines like Unity and GameMaker.
No, actually what they do is they move Madeline 1 pixel every time. They move her 1 pixel, then they check for collision, then they move her another pixel and check for collision. Every single movement in X and in Y is separated, and then every time they move, let's say they move in X first, blum, blum, blum. Do we have collision? No. Okay. Then they move in Y.
As they preferred to have precise control over the player's input.
Yeah.
So I asked Matt and Noel how they came to these numbers for Madeline's movement.
Testing.
A lot of it was intuitive. A lot of it was just from making a lot of platformers. You get to get a sense of what you want a platformer to feel like and what works.
And a lot of it's just experimentation, right? Like trying things and then getting people to play test it and seeing how it feels and watching them and seeing like, oh, that did not work as intended, so this needs to be toned down or this needs, to be better.
Yeah, and it changed a lot through development too. Lots of little changes, even big changes.
And it, like in regards to like how the pacing feels, like when you're platforming, like when should you be stopping and when should you be like more flowing, like the mechanics change to kind of like make that all feel better.
Isn't there too many computations when you do all of these? No, not really, because you're only doing this for Celeste and you're running it probably in a fixed loop, meaning let's say 60 frames per second. You're only updating it 60 frames per second. The game simulation, it's not that much. And it's a 2D game and CPUs are very powerful. Like this stuff will never break your computer.
So those are the basics, but there's way more to Madeline in the form of two
the
extra
camera
moves
does move, actually.
you can use when scaling the mountain. One is the climb. Hold the trigger and Madeline will snap to a wall, and then can climb up it and bounce off for a springy wall jump. Unlike Meat Boy, who slides up walls uncontrollably, Madeline sticks to surfaces like glue. Climbing is dictated by a stamina system. Madeline's got 110 stamina points, though that's not shown to the player, and they depreciate at different rates depending on whether you're holding still, climbing, or doing a climb jump.
Yep, climb jump is bad.
The other move is the dash. Hit the dash button and Madeline will fire off into the direction you're holding.
In my opinion, the dash and wall jumping are the coolest mechanics in the entire game. They are so fun. Especially, it's so many, but like dash is awesome. I love dash. You can correct your jumps so many times with dash. If I ever want to make a platformer, the first thing I'm gonna do is make a dash, 100%.
She can only dash once in midair, elegantly represented by her hair turning blue. So you'll either need to touch the ground or...
This is also a really cool thing that shows you visually, without any UI icons, that you can't dash anymore. Your hair is blue now. I think I would have turned it grey, by the way. But maybe that's not as cool as blue.
grab a crystal to replenish your stock. The dash does take control away from you because Madeline fires in one direction at max speed, but that's only for the first 0.15 seconds of the move. From there, she slows down and you're given control back, meaning you can cancel the momentum of the dash to stop yourself flinging into spikes. This gives the move more nuance and expressiveness compared to the same, more static move in Celeste's Pico 8.
I've actually played that. Yeah, I tried this out. This is the original game.
Precursor. With these three mechanics, the jump, the climb, and the dash, Celeste becomes a rapid-fire resource management puzzle of managing vertical space and picking when and where to execute different moves. A jump here, a dash there, onto the wall, then back off to regain stamina and replenish your dash before jetting off again.
You're basically managing your resources the entire time, while the game feels very smooth. And maybe he goes into all of these forgiveness mechanics.
Speed and level of control, giving the game an exciting, ever-changing pace.
Good morning.
All part of the developer's plan, as it turns out.
Like a lot of problems in Celeste can be solved in multiple ways. Like you could either dash or you could climb. And then, you know, there's some that you can only use one or the other. You have to use both in different combinations. But the dash was always supposed to be sort of the more chaotic option where it's kind of harder to control, whereas the climb is more methodical and like you have more precise control of it.
It's not just the numbers that make Madeline's moveset feel so good. Art, animation, and sound effects help sell the feeling too.
True,
like the squash and squeeze on her jump, which really emphasizes the movement in her body.
That really makes, like, by the way, I made a Celeste tutorial on YouTube and we literally copied all of her frames into an animation. And the moment I, for the first time, walked her in that game, it felt so awesome. Like, it feels... The pixel art animation for her is incredibly smooth. Feels really good.
The way tiny dust particles kick up and the controller rumbles when you hit the ground to sell the impact. The 4-frame pause and microscopic screen shake whenever you dash, which makes the jolting movement feel even more heightened. And the trail of shadows and the blazing white contrail, which emphasize the speed and direction. Celeste isn't a bonkers Vlambeer-style juice fest, but these subtle and short-lived effects do a lot of heavy lifting in making the game feel better and giving feedback to your inputs and actions.
Okay.
While Celeste is a very hard game at times, and gets even harder if you go for the strawberries and cassette tapes and B-side levels and so on, the developers are actually extremely generous to the player, with an untold number of hacks and special cases in the code that make the game way less punishing. The most famous, perhaps, is the way you can jump a few frames after leaving a platform.
Coyote time.
And still spring into the air. This is called Coyote Time, named after the bits in Looney Tunes cartoons where characters run off platforms and keep sprinting in midair. But there are loads of others hidden in the code. Dashing into a corner won't bonk you into oblivion, but you'll merely sail around the edge of the platform. Spikes have a small hitbox, so you won't die if you touch the very tip. These traffic light blocks will still grant you momentum, even if you're a little late on the button press. If you do a climb jump, but quickly push away from the wall, the game switches to a wall jump and refunds the stamina. And if you jump just before touching the ground, the game will remember that and execute the command when you land.
Jump buffering.
It feels bad if you like press jump like the frame before you touch the ground, and you touch the ground is like nothing. Like you want to feel
annoying.
Like, no, I pressed the jump button.
That's actually, like, you guys have to try this. Make a platformer in a 2D game. Make a character controller where you just jump, and then basically try to jump twice in a row, pixel perfect. You do that for 2 minutes and you get tired of it. It gets annoying.
Right, it just feels like the game messed up. It feels like the game missed your input or something, like it got eaten. And
so you're like, I pressed that shitty button. Why did it not happen?
You don't want that. You want to feel like you're in control of your character and it's doing what you want it to do. And then when you mess up, it's more on the player figuring out like, how do I, solve this problem and execute it better, not like, oh, it's 1 frame off and it just like the game just killed me. It's like working on the player's intent rather than like making it a precise simulation of like pressing buttons at the correct time.
And so this is what hardcore gamers tend to say, which I disagree with. these things don't make the game easy, but they make the game fun. Because having jump buffering doesn't mean that it's easier. It just means that you can make a very difficult game and have these things in there, and then you can focus on the parkour rather than the pixel perfect input. Makes it easier, but you can compensate with harder levels. Yes, you can make harder levels because the game feels easier to play.
The cool thing too about that is like for actually like really pro players, people who get really, really good at it, it does come down to those frames. Like even if you like, you say like, oh, like you get 3 frames off of a ledge and you can still jump. But then, you know, for a normal player, that's just like, it just makes the game feel better. But then for pro players who actually are trying to get through a level like super fast or like trying to execute something perfectly, then they actually get down to the frames of like, no, I have 3 extra frames, so I can use those to like get across this gap you're not supposed to get across, or like do this thing faster. Yeah. So you still get that kind of like frame perfect play that's possible, but then for casual players, it makes it a lot like just feels better.
It's a good point, and boy have players found ways to get the most out of the game's movement code. I asked TGH, the world's top-ranking Celeste speedrunner.
27 minutes, 50 seconds. Ooh, damn. Look, the first 2 are fighting against each other. It's all Americans. Oh, look, there's 3 Germans. Look at that. Yeah, like when we talk about difficulty, it is important to understand that what is the actual game about. A platformer isn't about jumping in a pixel-perfect way. It's about making more difficult. So making that more difficult doesn't make sense. Yeah, a platformer is about figuring out the level and figuring out the different types of jumps you can do in the level. Agreed, yeah.
To explain some of the advanced techniques he uses to turn the game's toughest stages into graceful, effortless dances. First, there's the dash cancel, where a forward dash could be cancelled.
Yeah, this is what I was talking about. You see how, if we go frame by frame...
First,
so like, he dashes and then jumps almost at the same time. And so the dash gives you a movement speed boost, that is faster than your run speed. And the only reason why this works is because of the approach function, where this if check, this is acceleration, right? And then this is the opposite. If this doesn't happen because we are actually above our target movement speed, then we still keep that fast speed and slowly deaccelerate. I don't know what the opposite meaning of accelerate is. Down to our movement speed. That's why this dash jump works.
There's the dash cancel, where
you see how fast she can jump?
Forward dash could be cancelled at the last second and turned into a massive jump that flings you through the air with all the momentum of the dash.
That's really fun to do.
Do this while crouching and you'll get the hyper dash, which is a lower but faster jump.
Lol, I didn't even know that. Holy shit, that's even crazier.
You can extend these 2 moves by separating the dash and jump inputs slightly more, so Madeline regains her dash in midair. And for even more speed, says TGH, after extending a hyperdash, you can dash diagonally down forward to chain momentum, and in some cases you can gain ludicrous speed. This is known as an ultra dash. You can also dash cancel upward along a wall for boosted height and vertical speed, which is called an up hyper.
This is so crazy.
There are loads of other techniques too, and TGH says it's amazing just how fluidly all of these techniques come together and work so well with the level design.
What is he doing?
That's likely because almost all of them are actually intended by the developers, and some are even taught to you in the game. Not that I can actually perform them, mind you.
Oh yeah.
It was important to Matt and Noel that Madeline's movement felt great, even if you don't have tricky, well-designed levels to explore. After all, this was one of the key suggestions they had when I asked for tips they might give to someone making their own platformer character.
It just makes sure the moment to moment feels good, so that like when someone was just sitting there with a controller and the room could be empty, but they can move their character around, make like that feel good. Like
see, like this brings me, you know, to this game. The grappling hook, if that's the key aspect of the game, if that's the hook of the game, that needs to feel like that has to be the most fun, engaging mechanic in the game.
With no goals or anything, just make sure it's fun to be that character.
Yeah.
Like I remember playing Mario Sunshine and just running around Delfino Plaza for hours because it was just fun.
You just like can flip off stuff and all these.
You guys ever played MMOs and then you were just playing in the main city? You're standing there talking to your buddies on Discord or on TeamSpeak, Ventrilo, and all you would do is just parkour across the city. You would run around, jump on your horse, or you just jump on fountains, on whatever buildings. You just had fun playing while doing nothing. That's essentially the same thing.
Things like just the player itself can do all these cool like interactive things that just feel fun.
But making levels and adding in new mechanics like pinball bumpers, trampoline clouds, moving blocks, pelting wind, and kamikaze hotel owners can actually force you to go back to the movement code and change how things work.
I mean, like, we decided early on what we wanted Madeline to be able to do, but the details of, like, the numbers definitely changed. And then the levels also changed, you know, in tandem with that. So, yeah, you basically just, like, get the player character to where it feels all right. You know it's not perfect. You know you have to do testing and stuff, but you need levels to test too.
Yeah.
So you know, make a bunch of levels and then you test and then you find out.
That's the biggest issue or the biggest pitfall that you can fall into. If you have a character and you think it feels good, and then you play test that character and you figure out that it's bad, if you made 10 levels, you can basically toss away these 10 levels. So that's why it is much better to have a few levels. Hopefully they go into this. Test in these few levels. Does it feel good? Yes. And then move on making more levels. Because otherwise you will spend most of your time redesigning the levels every time.
Oh, the player character has to change, and then you have to change 20 levels, and then you have to, you know, like, let different parts change other parts of the game and let it slowly reveal what it wants to be.
And you have to, I think, you just have to be willing to throw away stuff sometimes too. Like this, just this is a cool idea, it was a cool direction, but it wasn't working. It's like progressing what the game is because you're like learning about what the game actually is and you're figuring things out. So even though you're throwing work away, it's like a learning experience that like ultimately makes the game better.
Yeah, it's like it's still work that goes toward completing the game, even if it doesn't manifest as content in the game, right? Yeah. It becomes part of your knowledge that you use to make the rest of the content.
Now, Celeste shows a great way to do very tight and responsive controls, but that's just one way to do a platformer. Tweak those curves and you can get very different results, like the realistic animation of Playdead's inside or the intense air control of N+. Or Sonic games, which are all about building and maintaining momentum, so it's suitable that Sonic has a ridiculously long acceleration curve and likewise struggles to come to a complete stop. Still, I think Madeline's a really good place to start when thinking about platformer character design. Matt and Noel's work shows the importance of getting the curves right when building basic movement, adding mechanics that introduce very different ways to navigate the space, using feedback to emphasize movement, being forgiving about pixel precision, increasing the skill ceiling with advanced movement, and not being afraid to test, tweak, and toss away work throughout the lengthy process of getting this stuff right.
Yep.
Thanks so much for watching. There's a post on my Patreon now where I talk more about the run and jump graphs in this episode. And those who back the show at $5 or more can watch the full interview with Matt and Noel.
So this is how you can support him, by the way.
Did you come up with the term coyote time, Matt? Was that your invention?
No, that was a player, I think, wasn't it?
I don't know, actually.
I think it was in the Pico 8 one. A player called it Coyote Time, and we were like, that's a good name.
I've heard it used for other platforms too.
Okay. I think it comes from players. I don't think developers use that term up.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
I think that's a player term, which is cool. I think developers should take it.
Yeah, it's a good word.
Yeah.
Sounds like we need to do some detective work. Please remember that the GMTK Game Jam begins this Friday, so keep an eye on itch.io and this YouTube channel for more info. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button if you want new game design content to keep appearing in your sub box. See you later.
See you later. So this is the video, guys, and if you want to support him, here we go. Patreon, I guess I'll just link you the Game Maker's Toolkit support. Have we figured out why Celeste is successful now? Delicious gameplay. Yeah, it's basically just luck.